What's going on, everybody? My name is Lucas. Welcome back to my channel. Good to see everybody again. It's been a minute since I made a video. Things have been pretty busy for me, to be honest. Grad school started and I have been spending quite a lot of time on that. In addition to, of course, taking care of my animals. So I've been struggling to find time to whip out the camera, but I finished my work a little bit early this week, and so today I had the opportunity to do some filming. So here we are. This is kind of the most involved time of the year for me. I am hands-on with the Bredli pythons that I'm working to breed this season every day, moving them in and out of their cooling containers. So like I talked about in the previous vlog, in order for Bredli pythons to breed successfully, they do have to be cycled to simulate a winter. And for me, I don't really have the option of freezing these cages here in my bedroom down to the necessary temperatures. I take each Bredli python that I'm cycling for breeding out of their enclosure and I place them in a plastic bin. And then I put those bins in my living room next to an open window. Here in the Bay Area, I don't get extreme winters. My nighttime lows are in the 40s if I'm lucky. Really strategic placement is the only way that I'm able to get my snakes cold enough. You got to keep in mind with those snakes, like I've said before, high 60s, low 70s, that's a summer evening, right? That's a summer's night for them in their native habitat. So it really is necessary to get them cold in order to successfully trigger their reproductive cycles. So that's going well. One more month in the bins, really cold at night, and after that point we're gonna warm back up, start putting pairs together and hope for the best. I'll definitely be turning on the camera for that. This is my female black-headed python, Demi. Some of you might recognize her from my black-headed python video, but she's gotten quite a bit larger. She is definitely putting on size, which I'm really, really excited about. Such an amazing animal, as you can see. Very tame, easy to work with, just an absolute joy. She has temper tantrums in her cage. It's pretty funny. She'll absolutely freak out when I enter her home, but then as soon as she's out, puppy dog tame. She is one of those strange instances where she will not take food off of tongs. She used to when she was younger, no problem, but for some reason these days she absolutely will not take food off of tongs. She open mouth bluff strikes at the food and runs away. So I have actually been feeding her exclusively by a method known as drop feeding, where I'm placing the rodent or quail prey on top of her hide box and turning off the lights and walking away. And she seeks it out once she's calmed down from the disturbance of the door opening and eats her meals that way. So every snake, every individual is different. My other black-headed python is ravenous, and if I put a prey item in the enclosure on tongs, it's gonna snatch that thing right up. But it just goes to show you again, these are individuals, and you really do have to learn your specific animal. You can't necessarily rely on the common trains of thought for the species at large all the time, because not everybody acts the same. And that's one of the most interesting and fascinating parts of working with your animals, is learning who they are and what their habits are and adjusting to them. As my good friend Eric Burke would say, become a student of the serpent, and then you will not go wrong. Speaking of black-headed pythons, like we talked about in the last vlog, my big 11-year-old-ish, probably, male is on breeding loan with my good friend Riley Jimison in Sacramento at the reptile shop GX3. So him and the owner Grant are working on pairing up my boy with two females there. I've talked about this before, so skipping over the details. The update there is that things continue to go extremely well. There are two females that my snake has been put with, one of which just ovulated this week, and that was so cool to see. When I got those pictures from Riley, I just about peed my pants. She swelled up like a balloon. The fact that that girl is receptive and has now gone through an ovulation is incredible. It's looking more and more promising every day that we might actually produce some black-headed pythons this year. And so that second female has not yet ovulated, but there's still a chance that she will also go. The male and her have locked up a ton, even more than the female that did ovulate. And even just today, Riley sent me this video of my male spurring that female. So the breeding activities continue with those two. Fingers crossed that that snake also becomes receptive and also has an ovulation. 2 clutches would be so cool. But hey, either way, amazing stuff. And pretty soon we'll be going back up there and bringing the boy home once his job is done. And I will continue to keep y'all posted on baby black-headed pythons. Cross your fingers. Hey, by the way, speaking of Riley Jimison, did you guys know that me, Riley, and Eric Burke, along with special guests, do a podcast almost every week, usually on Monday mornings, called Carpets and Coffee. It's a really fun show, totally unscripted. We just kind of sit down with our cups of coffee in the morning and talk snakes. It's a really good time. We live stream it on the Morelia Python Radio YouTube channel, which if you don't already follow that, you should definitely go subscribe to that channel. But yeah, I think we've done like 8 episodes so far, and those are all posted both on the YouTube channel and on podcasting sources like Spotify and whatnot. So go check those out. A lot of really good conversation with some really cool voices. We had an episode with Garrett Hartle of Reach Out Reptiles, and we also had, of course, our good friend Owen McIntyre on recently as well. All right, so in addition to blackhead python breeding, Bredli's python breeding, we're also, of course, raising up our group of Woma pythons here. So let's go grab the bitey one and see how that goes. There he is. Quite possibly the most beautiful Woma python that I have ever seen. I still can't believe how lucky I am that this snake is here. Again, like, I lucked out with this, as you can all tell. Look at those colors, guys. Unreal. I literally lucked out because somebody else bought this snake, and they disappeared when it came time to pay. I was lucky enough to have also inquired, and he let me know and asked if I was interested. Of course I said yes, and did not disappear when it came time to pay. So that's the story of this boy here. And I'm probably gonna jinx myself by saying this, but it has been a while since he's bitten me, which is nice, because when he first got here, he was a guaranteed chomp. We're a few years off, we've got babies, but when you're starting a project and you want to be successful, starting with babies and raising them up yourself is probably the best way to do it, because those animals will be accustomed to you and the way that you conduct business in your snake room. They'll be less stressed and feel more at home, and that is conducive to successful breeding. And one of the things that makes Woma pythons so fun to work with is the variability in their appearance. They have a really vast range of different looks, and so that's really cool. This is my female Pumpkin. She has some really nice banding as well, pretty light color, which I like. It's been a little while since I showed off these hypomelanistic Bredli on the channel, putting on size nicely, but maintaining some really beautiful hypomelanistic coloration. So this is a pair from Nick Mutton, and they are 100% hypomelanistic Het 4 stonewashed. Some of you may have seen on my Instagram that I'm actually cohabbing these snakes, and that continues to go very well. They have a spacious enclosure with plenty of opportunities for them to stay apart if they choose to. But interestingly enough, I would say probably close to 70 or 80% of the time, they choose to be together, and they've shown absolutely no signs of stress. And again, just to be clear, I would not necessarily say that I recommend cohabbing your snakes, but it is something that I have been interested in with Bredli's pythons specifically, because a lot of really well-known accredited institutions around the world do cohab Bredli's pythons successfully throughout their lives. And so it's just something that I wanted to experiment with at home under a watchful eye and close supervision. It'll be really interesting to see when these two are grown up if the fact that they grew up together has any impact on how receptive they are to each other for breeding attempts. You know, perhaps because they are so accustomed to each other's presence, it won't be stressful or overly exciting for the male to put them together. And perhaps that's a good thing when you want those productive copulations at times when the female is actually going to be receptive. All right, guys, and we do have some new additions to discuss. I put a deposit down on a pair of inland carpet pythons with Nick Mutton quite a long time ago, and they are finally here. But inlands are one of the subspecies that are known for their pleasant disposition. They tend to be pretty tame. And one of the super interesting things about these guys is, just like Bredli's pythons, they are spring breeders, not winter breeders. They experience extreme weather conditions, from freezing colds in the winter months to extremely high heat events during the summer. And they also experience very variable rainfall with extended periods of drought. So very similar in that regard to the Bredli's pythons. And because of that, they are very hardy. I'm so excited to be working with this species. Those of you familiar with inland carpets have probably heard people say that they don't really photograph well, and that blue hue that they have is kind of not really picked up well in cameras compared to when you're looking at one with the naked eye. And now that I have them here, that's absolutely true. They really do have a blue sheen, especially to the belly, that the camera just doesn't really pick up the way that the human eye does. So, and there is the male inland carpet python. I'm gonna leave him be for now, but just wanted to show you guys the other half of the pair. Comment down below if you would like me to do a deep dive video on inland carpets as a species, similar to the ones I've done for Bredli's pythons, Womas, and blackheads. I think that would be a really fun video to make. These are such an underrated subspecies of carpet python. And a lot of you probably already know what this is. This is a rough-scaled python, Morelia carinata. This beautiful little snake came over in the shipment with the inlands from Nick Mutton. Now, for those of you who don't know, this species is one of the rarest python species in the world. They come from an extremely remote portion of Australia and were unknown to science for quite a long time. Yeah, see that little dot? That is the current known range of the rough-scaled python. As their name would suggest, the rough-scaled python is extremely unique amongst other pythons in that it has keeled scales. They are the only member of Pythonidae to have keeled scales. Interestingly, this species also has the longest anterior maxillary teeth of any python species. Due to some very interesting conservation efforts in Australia, these guys are now pretty commonly kept in Australia, and they're also being captive born and bred in the US and Europe. All captive rough-scaled pythons descend from just a very small group that were taken from the wild and bred at Australian Reptile Park to try and preserve the species. One really cool thing is that using genetic data, some scientists calculated that rough-scaled pythons diverged from green tree pythons about 25 million years ago. So there are some indications that they may even kind of be sister species. Both green trees and rough-scaled pythons have really long teeth for grasping prey and similar body plans as well. And it's entirely possible that the rough-scaled pythons used to be a lot more common and used to have a larger range. The way it's put in the complete carpet python book is that it's likely the few remaining populations of carinata and the rainforest they inhabit today are Pleistocene remnants. It is possible that we're witnessing the decline of the species due to natural climate change and resulting habitat loss. They may be moving towards extinction through natural processes. So a lot of the places that they probably used to inhabit are now underwater with sea level rise at the end of the last glaciation. So absolutely an incredible species with an incredible story. and one that might actually just be on its way out of evolutionary history. And the fact that it's here in my hand in my apartment in California is kind of a miracle. I am so honored and excited to have this snake here. It really feels like a privilege, and I can't wait to raise her up and work with her and observe the fascinating behaviors associated with such a unique species. Well, everybody, that's all I've got this time around. Hope you enjoyed watching, seeing some cool animals. If you haven't already, it would mean a lot if you subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram, Centralian_exotics. Check out all that Morelia Python Radio Network stuff. Check out Carpets and Coffee, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace.